Hey guys, in today's video I want to share how I edit my DI guitars and make them sound a little bit better or shape the tone depending on what you want to do. I want to share the tips and plugins that I use in my productions that I've been working on at home and how you can do it yourself. First I'll show a little comparison of the DIs that aren't processed and the ones that are, and then I'll show a little comparison as well with them with some distortion added and then in a mix with some backing music so we can get an idea of what it does. So on screen here you can see I've got my guitar bus and then I've got two left and right DI signals here. You can see these are the guitars here that are processed, and then I've got on the right hand side here, these are the ones here that are not processed. And for the unprocessed ones here on the right, you can see I've just boosted them by 5 dB just to kind of match what was happening with the processing that I've got for the DIs here. And you can see here, this is the signal chain for the DI channel here, and I've got it turned off on this one because it's already processed. But these three here that I've got, these are the processing that I've applied and printed for these tracks here. And these ones on the right here, they don't have those three plugins. But the rest of them, they all have going through the Fortin amp here with the Cali cabs, and then into the guitar bus for the further part of the processing where it's got some tape saturation. And I've also clipped it a bit to give it more punch into the guitar bus, a bit of DI matching to some guitar tones that I've made in the past that I like. Also removing resonances with different plugins like Pro Q3, boosting certain parts, removing certain ones as well, and saturation and EQ. And this is just an A/B test of the guitar that I like the tone of. That's a little quick overview of the processing there. Let's have a listen here. And as I said, we'll listen to the unprocessed DI signal clean first, just the clean with no distortion, and then we'll compare the distortion versions and in a mix. So this is the clean DI signal, but it's still got the bus processing for the guitar, obviously, but nothing else is turned on the actual DI here. So that was the unprocessed signal. Now let's check out the processed signal. So like I said, these three plugins have been applied processing. So they're just turned off because I've printed them into this signal here. So we'll take a listen and see what that sounds like. Now you can hear like it does shape the tone, and a lot of that is to do with the EQ. So the first thing you can really do is when you're doing this sort of processing here is this is like a tone match, but you could use this to like a DI that you've already made a nice sculpting for and change it. Or you could open up a fresh EQ and actually start fishing for things that you like. So if you were to edit the, say this one here, so we've got the unprocessed one. If I turn this on and engage it, you can see now if I edit the DI here, we can see that we can shape the sort of mids, we can take away the low end or boost it, and this will all feed into the amp and change how the amp sort of reacts to our signal. So that EQ I just used on the front of the guitar bus there before this extra processing, just give you an example of if you had it here in the start of the chain, how you can definitely shape the low end and the high end and kind of give it more darkness or lower. If it's too much low end, you can remove it, you can add some low end, and it'll really affect the amp. So the next thing I have as well is this here is just some virtual drive. So with the FG73, and then I've used a compressor here to sort of even out the compression with some downward compression. And that's that part of there. And then I've also experimented with this multiband compression. I'm using OTT, but something like Pro MB would work really great as well. You probably get more control. But with this one here, I didn't like the high end, but I liked the sound it shaped. So I turned up the high end here, but I pulled down this level here down to its lowest point. But if you had something like Pro MB, it would get more control there, and you could sort of remove that high end so you don't get that hiss. And what that is, this is upward compression. See, I've got upward here, downward completely off. and it's at 58% on the OTT at the moment. And the upward compression, when you're doing it to the signal, is going to give that low sort of chug and lift up things from the bottom, and it's going to give it more body. So you gotta be careful with this because it could ruin your signal and just make things come up in the signal you don't want to hear. But if you blend it in and you do it in a tasteful way, kind of experiment and try that upward compression, it can really give more body to your chugs. And you'll be able to hear it when I turn the distortion on here. So let's try and listen to the distortion examples with the processing and without, and really notice the chugs and listen for that extra sustain. Let's first take a listen to the unprocessed DI signal chain here with the distortion. Now let's take a listen to the process signal. So to me, it just sounds like there's a bit more sort of emphasis in the chugs in that sort of low end, which I like the sound of. Now I'll give you a comparison in the mix as well. It's going to be a subtle difference, but you'll definitely hear that there's going to be a bit of a difference in the entire mix. All right, so what I've got here is something really cool. It's called Metric AB by Plugin Alliance, and I love this plugin. It's super awesome to sort of reference mixes and stuff. What I've got here is there's an A and B. So the blue is the signal that we're listening to in our DAW, and the orange here will be whatever we're dragged into this box here. And I bounced down the unprocessed amp sound that we had, so we can kind of A/B in real time, and you can really hear the difference, sort of get a comparison to see what it's actually doing in the mix, going back and forth without sort of jumping between any gaps, so we can get that real clarity and see what's happening. So first I'm just going to level match. So for me, there's a subtle difference there. And as usually with the orange one, which was the unprocessed there, it gave it a bit more sort of like there were some extra frequencies that you might be masking other instruments. So that's why you would probably use this, or to even shape your tone. Maybe you want that sort of, you don't want that sort of extra muddy sound. Sometimes you do. So it really can give you that flexibility of just having one guitar and changing up the tone like that. So if I go back to this point of the song here, what I'll do is I'll bounce down just the guitars here, and then we'll just A/B with this. All right, let's A/B the two guitars there. So the processed and unprocessed with the DI processing with the two here. And I've just got it in a loop in my DAW here, and I've got a loop on the plugin, so we can kind of go back and forth and have a quick listen. So for me, I can definitely hear the difference between the distorted there. So they're two different sounds. I'd say they're both good. I could use both of those, but it just gives you some extra options. And I think it's really cool that you can kind of shape the tone there just by using a couple of plugins just in the DI before the signal chain. So just to recap what I was using. So I had, for the process there, I had actually did a DI match. So this was a tone that I liked that I used. I just did a DI match. There's another plugin called DI Match by Joey Sturgis Tones. And it does something similar to what we want to achieve with the DI processing. We'll go back to our signal here that doesn't have any DI processing, and I'll do the same thing. I'll just turn off the amp here just so we can hear just the DI signal with nothing else but the processing that we've got. And this would be a part of the EQ shaping part of it. So you could use your own EQ like I demonstrated earlier, or you could add something like this Joey Sturgis DI match, where you can actually match some of your guitar sounds to other guitars that have been recorded in this profile here. So what you do is you would load up the plugin here, and then you'd press play and capture the source. So once you capture it there, your original line there, that's the original DI signal. So once you captured your source here, you can go up and just load any of these profiles. And that would be similar to what we're doing with the tone shaping with the DI here. So if I just pick one here, all right, so you can see here, Buster's DI here goes over ours, and that's what it's doing to the signal. And you can see here, we can increase or decrease the amount of that sort of EQ and then level match as well. As you can see, I scrolled through a couple of profiles, and that's all going to affect your tone going into your amp. So that's a cool way of doing that. So you can do it manually and kind of sculpt out things and shape it the way you like, or you can use a plugin like that, which makes it helpful with different sort of guitars that have a certain sound. I'll show you an example here of when I turn up this high band, this hissing sound with the amp that you don't want to hear. You can see when I increase that, it's making the sound really scratchy and really unpleasant to listen to. So gotta be careful, especially with the upward compression, but that's something I've been experimenting with, and it's really cool to get that sort of like thud and sustain out of your instruments. I know you can get that a lot of sustain extra out of like doing the same method with snare drums. I thought I'd try it out here with the guitar and see if you can get that little bit of extra sustain, especially in those sort of hold chugs where you're sort of palm muting and you're chugging and you're letting it ring out. And I think it does the job here. So I'm going to keep experimenting with it and trying different ways. But let me know in the comments if you guys found this helpful, if you want to try out this yourself, or if you have any tips and you've done in your own productions that would be helpful as well. Share them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. So thanks for watching today's video. See you in the next one.